Hey guys, Cam from Inky Knuckles here, coming at you on Tuesday night for our art showcase and Q&A and all-around collector and art extravaganza. I've got a very special guest tonight, a real up-and-comer, rising star in comics, and big into the heavy robot mech genre, leading the charge with his debut book, Giga. I say Giga, Giga. I don't know. I'll get him to straighten us out. But without further ado, Mr. John Lee. How you doing, John?
Hey, how's it going? Welcome everybody. Thanks for having me, Cam.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to this. We haven't had a lot of chats since we started working together, so everyone gets a little busy. So it's nice to just chat and, like I said, shoot the shit, hang out, and talk comics and art. So first and foremost, is it Giga or Giga?
I'm pretty sure it's a Giga. At least that's what I've been marketing. Yeah, it's Giga. But I've heard people say Jiga, Jiga, Giga. So honestly, whatever makes them get the next issue, I'm in.
Whatever strikes the movie deal.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think Giga is pretty much what most people call it, kind of like Gigabyte, but yeah. And then the sequel will be called Peta.
because last week I was talking with Jesse Lonergan, and it was I kept saying Hedra, but he's calling it Hedra.
Hedra, right.
And it's his book, so I won't argue.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all him too. So
yeah,
he is the god of Hedra.
There's no room for interpretation there.
Right.
But yeah, so start off. Let's just jump into it. Giga, how are you doing? I know you're working on the third issue right now. Issues 1 and 2 are out currently. Yeah. And it sounds like you're having a lot of fun. The work you guys are doing on that book is incredible. The story is matching the art in terms of how great of a read it is. I can't remember which artist posted this on Twitter the other day. It was a prominent comic artist said something to the effect of, honestly, I buy so many books for just the art and I never read them. Mm-hmm. With Giga, I feel like you guys are all really taking some big swings, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, if you want to just lead off with that, are you? Having a mustache? Leon says, "Yeah, you didn't get the memo."
Oh, better start growing. But yeah, thank you. Gig has been a absolute dream. Some days I can't believe that it's the first book I get to work on, when it kind of matches with everything from my love of graffiti all the way to my love of mechs, from the early roots of Neon Genesis and stuff. So it's been, and then you talk about the rest of the team, and to be a rookie more or less and get to work with such masterclass people like Alex, Roche, and Aditya, and then my editors, it's you talk like this feels from day one, it's felt like my university education, in comics, getting to understand how to do it from all those positions and how to tailor everything back to each other, whether it's the writing or the art style or the coloring or the lettering. It's absolute. I'm there every day just taking notes on, how to get better and how to, learn as much as I can with these guys as long as I'm with them,
For sure.
Yeah. But it's just a blast. I mean, I get to draw the biggest robots ever, and I get to tag them with graffiti, which, like the first swing I ever took at art was, I was doing like wheat paste ups and then doing graffiti, and then, and then I found out that I wasn't really good at running or jumping fences. So I got really out of graffiti real fast. So, but yeah, and then, I found my desk being, I don't have to run from anything from here except like an email or two, but, but no, it's crazy. I feel like on my road here, I thought that my first book would be this or that or anything, you know, and then when it finally happens and it's like you go through all the things of getting it published and all that, and from pitch till now, it's, I don't know, still living a dream, you know. I love drawing this book, you know, like the world is just so expansive and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface, you know, like some days I'm daydreaming about like gigas and snow and like just different like visual, like how it would look in New York, how it would look in anywhere in Tokyo or whatever, you know. It's the exact world I wanted, you know. To be able to create, you know, that comes with the pressure as well. That was, you know, like everything from designing the mechs to the world to how humans fit in them. Like it, I don't know. I think at first it felt like a lot of pressure and it still feels like a lot of pressure, but you know, as long as I just kind of stay true to what I've always loved, you know, and lean really hard into it and not shy away from things, I think that's where the best results are coming.
For sure. And what I think with the book too, and like you said, it's giant mechs and you got graffiti and you've got this world and it's such a unique and interesting world. What I find is how engaging the book is. It's about giant mechs and they don't fight each other. They're stagnant at the moment. And, you know, just how interesting the concept is, you know, and like you guys, and I do appreciate too that you guys are taking your time. Nothing's boring. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
You guys are taking your time. You're not just throwing fight here, fight here, fight here, fight here. Look how cool this looks. Look how cool this looks. Like there's a lot of genuine, like, it makes you think, and it's a slower burn, I'd say, for a giant mech book for sure, but it's crazy engaging, and even like the payoff, the end of issue 2 alone was kind of like, holy shit, this is, you know, and it just felt these payoffs that are, as they're coming, feel really earned, and totally, you know, I'm just in awe of what you guys are able to do and the approach you're taking, because I mean, if I was writing and drawing, which I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't do either, but I would just, you know, now they fight. 2 pages of talking and now they fight. And you guys are really
then a 10-page fight scene and like
yeah, exactly. And I think it's easy to do that, to lean on that, because of course if you were illustrating that, it would look really cool. But no, I feel like you guys give the readers a lot of credit too, and I think that's where certain books fail. Is they don't give readers enough credit. We love comics, but it doesn't mean we're not sophisticated in, you know, how we approach the stories that we like. So no, it's great. I think it shows a ton of respect for your reader, and love the book.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's, you know, I give so much of that credit to Alex, and why I consider him such a master at his craft. You know, and you know, I listened to that Brandon Graham episode that you guys had a while ago, and that whole metaphor of that Japanese show of like the hot dog and when to give your viewer the hot dog, you know what I mean? Like that. It's so true. And, you know, everyone's going to get their hot dog that they paid for, you know what I mean? But when it's going to happen. And on top of that, as a learning experience, it's really interesting as a fan of comics and then somebody that wanted to draw comics, to learn to go into the industry and then start to understand where are you most powerful at what you do. You know, and I think, what Alex does so well is balancing these quiet moments that are developing characters and worlds so elegantly, and then giving you these very satisfying moments or these very satisfying backdrops that really pull you into this world, which, you know, it's to learn from someone that has such a good handle and restraint to not get too soapboxy or to just give it all at the beginning. You know, it's really crazy how it's done. To see, because sometimes it's like, you know, you're working on it for, you know, 6 to 8 weeks an issue, and then you read it and you're like, oh, like that's, I know what I was drawing, but I didn't like, to what degree did I understand?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then to really see how it's like I get to meet the beginning of Alex's vision, and then again I get to meet it again at the end when everything's done.
Yeah.
And it's every time it kind of blows my mind, just to have that experience of reading everything together. It's the greatest learning experience,
For sure. And there must be a certain, well, obviously you guys aren't done yet, but
yeah,
once you get through the first arc, I think they'll probably have a certain level of satisfaction to it.
Yeah. It's I'm very excited because we've had it, we've been working on Giga for, I've been with it for about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. But Alex has had this story brewing in his head for long before that.
Yeah.
So to kind of see the evolution of it all the way through, like I'm very, like I know where we're going, but I don't know every nook and cranny of how we're going to get there yet, so part of it makes me nervous, and then part of it makes me very, very excited, to be able to draw that stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. And this is just a question, and you don't have to answer it.
Sure.
I'd never trap someone to speak poorly of their collaborators, and I know you wouldn't. But with Alex and your collaborative style, is he leaving certain things open to interpretation, or is he very, very, very clear on what that vision is? You don't have to answer it either, but
yeah, no. Again, I think his balance is there too. He knows exactly what he wants, which is great. And when I turn something in, if it doesn't hit, and it doesn't, not just like a little grift or like, glazing by it, like if it doesn't hit fully, he does not hesitate to tell me that it didn't hit, and I think that's, I don't know how rare that is. This is, what I mean? But I feel like it's rare, to work with somebody that is willing to, like, even if it's going to butt heads or even if it's going to cause confrontation, we're both very willing to go there in order to find the best result. Oh, which I think is great. And then the input that, because it's not just between me and Alex, I feel like the input even comes from Aditya and Roche, as well as our editor. Everyone's kind of just bringing their best ideas forward, and we're all just kind of working together to figure out how to do it, But yeah, I think it's balanced, although he has a very clear vision of what he wants, Alex, he has a lot of trust in how I'm going to interpret it, Okay. Yeah.
Cool. No, that's interesting. I'm always kind of curious that insight, because the writers that I know, differing personalities across the board, and I always love hearing the creative insights. So it's good, and the product has been amazing. So that's great to hear. And I think and I'll pull up some pictures here in a second. Just curious, like this being your debut comic, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And but you've done some storytelling before, obviously.
A little bit, yeah.
Some sequential storytelling. I find, even though, looking at some of your standalone illustrations, some of your album covers, that stuff, you're very adept at telling a story in an image. How do you find that coming over from, not a ton of experience in sequential storytelling,
right?
But I feel like you have this innate ability to tell a story in an image.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you find it difficult, always now you're working on Giga, all these issues, all these pages, have you found it challenging transitioning to this sequential level of storytelling versus before you could, album cover, whatever illustration you're doing, you can tell that story in one image?
Sure.
Because it seems very seamless, from our standpoint. I'm just curious how that changed, if it changed at all.
It kicked my ass all up and down the block, and it continues to. But it is so satisfying. I've never had anything challenge me as much as this book has. And I've never had anything challenge me as much as comics has. like we were talking about this a little bit earlier about like what separates the men from the boys in comics, and it's knowing when to go full in and when to pull back and when to do just enough to keep the story moving and not slow down the reader. So coming from, standalone illustrations where you're just dealing with a client and you can very easily communicate that I just want to make the most beautiful thing, and you can just keep rendering and rendering, and you're just worrying about the quality of one image. In a comic, it's completely different. I feel like, what I mean? You're still worried about how to make things beautiful, but you're a little less concerned about whether that is like I'm not so much concerned about I'm becoming less concerned about the beauty just coming from me. You know what I mean? Like I'm quickly learning of where you can, like, if you throw so much detail or something and you just overwork or over design a page, and it's always at what cost, right? Like I don't feel like you can, like when I read the comics that I love, like it is that delicate balance of speed and economic and just not spending too much time on each thing, and kind of letting go and full suspension in that. So the transition's been really tough. And with standalone images, like especially the one up right there, it's like it's one image that implies a narrative, but it doesn't really feed you a story. You know what I mean? And I think that's what has been so attractive about comics is you can just do so much. You know what I mean? Like the limits of it is just insane. It's like no more do I like draw one image and wonder what it looks like from another angle. You just throw in an inlet panel and there you go. It's you can kind of expand on an idea and extract from idea as much as you can. So it's it's extremely challenging. And I'm still learning a lot, what I mean, both on the page and off the page. But it's like I've said, it's an absolute dream to be able to do comics now. It's I don't know. I want to be around for a while.
No, that's good to hear. I'm curious too, what your relationship with comics was like, growing up. What kind of inspired you? I know everyone's kind of got a different tale there, but was there something? Did you have that aha moment, like, I want to be in comics, I want to draw comics, or is this kind of a gradual or organic thing? Just kind of curious.
In high school, I was. In high school, I had gotten introduced to manga, and that was kind of my first real introduction to the medium. And at that time, I just loved it as a fan. I just loved it and at that time, I'm pretty sure I had watched the animes and then read the manga. So I was kind of more distracted by the idea of like, oh, like how this is one for one or how this deviated from the source material or whatever. But no, I didn't start really entertaining the idea of comics until much later, so I drew here and there as a kid, but that I feel like that wasn't something I kept at. I didn't really I didn't really work that hard at it, or it was something I did here and there. And I didn't start drawing again until I was 22, which was pretty much 10 years ago. Like 2011. And the aha moment came when because I came from wanting to do like fine art and street art and stuff like that. And then I was doing like graphic design and stuff like that. But the aha moment for comics was seeing Moebius, like discovering Moebius for the first time, which is crazy, right? Because truly, like when I found Moebius, well, the craziest thing was when I traced back the roots of Moebius. Like the guy's been with me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it's through mentoring Jeff Darrow or, like he's the Fifth Element, like Tron, like he's been with me my entire life, and I never knew it until I
Yeah.
turned 22. And when I turned 22, the first book I got was Incal. It was readily available. It wasn't an arm and a leg to buy. It was like that reprint of Humanoids. It was like maybe like $40 or something, graphic novel price.
Yeah.
And reading through that, and then I became obsessed. I just saw, like, it was a combination of seeing his work and how his work was just the most like till this day, just the most arresting imagery. It stops me in my tracks. It takes me out of earth. And then I started really delving into like his interviews and like, I fell so in love with his work, and I wanted to know why comics, you know what I mean? Like, why was, even through Hollywood and stuff like that, he always came back to comics, and I wanted to understand why. And when I read how he spoke about comics and the power of the medium, I just, God, like, that guy, he's the truth. You know what I mean? He was the absolute truth. So he's my Lord and Savior, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really like that point you made about him living with you the whole time, and comics and our heroes in comics, and the true visionaries of yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
They make their way, their names and their work, makes their way into our consciousness. But it's not like it is with, and you and I were talking sports earlier. Everyone knows who Wayne Gretzky is. Everyone knows who LeBron James is. These names and these guys setting the precedent and setting the bar are out in the public consciousness. Everyone knows who they are. But with us, like you said, you had seen Moebius's work, you'd seen his influence through everyone, you loved it, but you didn't know there was a name attached to it, or you didn't know what that name was, or what whether it's subconscious. And that's what comics is such an interesting thing in that facet, because our celebrities, and they're our gods of the medium. The average person on the street, couldn't equate that name to anything. And
exactly.
It's just an interesting point, but I do love that it's Moebius, because even as a reader and an art collector and everything, for me, it was later in life that I developed an affection for Moebius, and it was the same thing. I'd seen the influences and enjoyed what he planted in the medium, but and I probably, if you want to create your Rushmore of comic artists, Rushmore of influential guys, I think he'd definitely be on there.
For sure. Yeah. He brought, I mean, I'm sure people did it before, you know what I mean? And people maybe are doing it today, but he brought this, especially his personal work where he wrote and drew his own stories. He brought spirituality to comics, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like we could use a bit more of that energy, you know what I mean? A little more spiritual, a little less math. And like, some of the key things I remember from his interviews was like when he would talk about channeling a drawing rather than just drawing, you know what I mean? Like, it's being a slave to the idea is a concept that I think that's where the magic happens. You know what I mean? And not thinking that you're a god or anything like that just because you're making the marks, but it's allowing consciousness to come through you and understanding that your ideas are older than you are, and just understanding your position as a channeler. You know what I mean? Sounds super stoner and everything, but it's exactly like the kind of stuff I needed to hear for me to be like, all right, you know what? Like, maybe, because I feel like the way I was drawing, a lot of people would be like, you should go into comics or you should go into screen printing. And like, I would hear these things, and I didn't, at that point in my life, I was a little ignorant to a lot of the legends of comics and what each of them brought to the game, and it was kind of his voice that it really clicked for me. And I was like, wow, there is no, like, when it comes to Moebius, there's no line between fine art and comics, or cartooning and fine art. It's all the same, and it's all connected. So it's that guy is he's ridiculous.
Well, and what's cool about that is, and equated to other things, I've heard people talk about their experience, and so often like you said, you said you don't want this to sound too much like stoner talk, but
yeah,
it's great to hear someone have this opinion without this condescending approach to it. Like making comics or whatever the passion is can be a true visceral experience. It's not, and it's okay to feel like that. It's okay to, channeling an energy through it, or, it's bordering on like a religious experience, creating art, reading comics, whatever the passion is.
Right.
And to hear someone like that, on such an incredible level, speak of it in that way, I think is very comforting.
Yeah.
It sounds juvenile, but you don't have to feel stupid about feeling that way about something,
Right. And it's beautiful. I know not everybody will, not everybody can agree with it, but it's what convinced me. Right. It's kind of what I was like, okay, like, it's like finding a home somewhere and be like, I think I can live in this neighborhood, like this with that park there and that bench there, like whatever. It's like just the way he spoke about the medium. It was like when you're dating somebody, right? And you're like, why is like, I've never had interest in this show, but why does this partner see so much? And like, I have to know why.
Yeah.
And as I did that, I just fell head over heels for comics, and then I realized I needed to learn how to draw. And that's kind of a lesson that I keep getting repeated over and over. It's like, okay, well, you really, because comics really, we talked about the transition earlier, in single illustrations, you can get away with not knowing how to draw much, and in comics, I feel like the medium as a mirror shows you very quickly what you can and can't draw.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing because suddenly you're forced to not be so precious about a certain angle or a certain thing that you did right. And you just continue to just like destroy, rebuild, and try to find, because there's a solution. You just have to continue to push, and there's a bit of that in single illustrations, when you're doing thumbs and stuff like that, but I don't think, I just feel like there's a little less hiding in comics, it's all highlighted.
Yep. That's very, very true.
Yeah.
I think you kind of, you're exposing yourself. It's out for everyone to see. And I think it's something that's terrifying, for the average person to just put it out there. And because the internet mafia never goes easy on anyone. And,
right.
And it's not just the internet, but it's just putting yourself out there into the ether. And, we comic readers, we can be some of the best people on the planet, and we can be some of the worst people on the planet. And it's true, because there's no hiding, and it's month to month. You nailed it last month. This month you're exposing yourself again for not exposing yourself, but putting yourself out there.
Like, did you read the latest Eternals #1?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, that Aditya turned me onto it. And there's a behind the scenes edition of it, and like
was that Romita Jr. and
no, I think God, this is bad. I think his name is Asad Rabiq. I think I said that.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, the one that just came out. That is like I read through that maybe a week or two ago, and like I think that's the brilliance right there, is because when you read it, when it's done, everything looks fully thought out, fully rendered, everything like that. And then you go back to look at his line work, and like some of these areas are pretty much just pencil work, but it's good enough to be printed in a Marvel comic.
Yeah.
And and that it's God, it's like the same feeling of like forcing an overtime goal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And going into overtime, and it's like the whole crowd is chanting. And when I flip a page, it's like I hear the audience in me roar, because it's like, whoa, like what did you just do, man? It's exciting. It's very very fist pumping moments. It's and I think that book is just an absolute masterclass at it.
Well, and I'm curious because when Cycle just chimed in, and this was my next point about Ribik Assad. He's freakishly good, and
and Matt Wilson coming in with the colors too. God,
that was my next question to you guys because I haven't read it, and I was going to ask if it was Assad's painted pages or if there was pencils and inks, but answered my question right there. He's freakishly good, and I think. I think he's prominent. You know, Marvel leans heavy on him, and he's on a lot of prominent books. But he's still one of those guys, even at the status he's at. I'd still consider him underrated, even though he probably has certain status with people. But I do genuinely consider him like a modern master. He's incredible.
Yeah, he should be like a household name. You know what I mean? Like it's it's crazy. I gotta dig. See, I think the best thing about being so new to comics is you have such a dense history and eras. You know, it's like studying wrestling if you're just getting into wrestling and you're going through the tapes of like the old Hell in a Cell matches. And it's exactly that with comics, because there's so many guys where, you may have like Mobius, you may have experienced their work in other formats or things derivative from that. But and I agree with he needs to create her own book. Like, you know, like the Marvel stuff is great, but like, man, like it's so refreshing when people really show their drawing chops. You know, I get the same feeling from Jerome Opeña, you know, especially with like 7 to Eternity. It's just like, God, every decision it feels masterful, and it's to the point where I know I can oversaturate the word, but it's just like you look through it and it's just like, get ready to take notes, you know what I mean? And like really start to dissect like what he does. You know, he just God, those guys are good.
Jerome as well. He's definitely it's funny because those guys are crazy good, and we talk about this a little bit. The popular creators for comic readers aren't always the most popular creators in the art world.
Right.
Some guys are on books and the books are selling like crazy, but their original art market might not be as high for whatever reason, and vice versa. But I feel like Assad and Jerome are guys who are very worthy of accolades on both sides. And because they're freakishly good.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen either of those guys' originals in person?
I actually, at various points, owned a piece from both of them.
That's so rad.
Yeah.
Just want to plug into your memories as far as collecting art goes. It's just, it's awesome.
Because I had bought, there's a few pieces I wanted from him. He did a Punisher cover and a while back, and it sold on Quan's site. And to this day, if I could still track it down, I'd love to have it. But I bought and eventually sold because I was saving up for a really big piece. But it was his Immortal Iron Fist cover. Number 2, I think. I can't recall. That was Jerome. And I'd still like to buy an Assad painted cover one of these years. But I had 2 different commissions from Assad, and he's just so casual with his paints.
Really? Oh,
yeah, he's so good.
That's so rad. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little shy about how little I know of comics, of certain covers and certain notable moments in comics, but like at the same time, man, I love being a little kid about this. You know what I mean? Because I just like, man, like I wish I mean, I don't know. You can't do that, right? Because if I said I wish I got into comics when I was like 8 years old or something, then, I might not be where I am now. But it's awesome to be excited about how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And how many, because these guys are like, I look at all these comic creators as just like all these mad scientists, and we're just learning and building upon their research and what they've done to this element known as comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so exciting to see from different cracks of the world, like what people have kind of thrown into the ring. It's exciting stuff, man. But I got covers.
It is. I do envy you in a lot of regards, but it's like like you do have this whole world you're still exploring, and it's awesome. And you will never exhaust the new great book to read, or the new artist to follow, or the old artist you didn't know about, or the old book you didn't know about. Even myself, I've been fairly heavily ingrained. I haven't been able to read as much lately, but
sure.
And even I find myself every day, I go to the comic store, I end up in the same 3 sections, and I end up finding something new every single time.
Yeah.
So, it's spectacular. Comics are special. And I think we're lucky to have them, for sure.
Yeah. It's God. And it's so cool to even be a little part of it. You know what I mean? It's all, man. I've been living in Disneyland for a while, so it's pretty great, man.
No, that's cool. No, it's awesome. I think, and I related. I was talking to someone the other day. Someone, can't remember who it was. We were talking about movies, and the thing with movies is I find it's harder to find the stuff you love, the stuff that really kind of speaks to you. There's a more finite amount of comics. I feel like comics, honestly, I could never exhaust all the great comics out there. I can never read them all.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, even if you had seen a page here or there, like, man, there's so many adventures that we can just pull the trigger on.
Yeah.
And we just haven't yet. You know what I mean? And that exists even on my limited shelf. You know what I mean? Like, I love, like, I do buy a lot of books that I have flipped through and have never read. Yeah. And I kind of love that because, it kind of comes out of nowhere where you got an hour or 20 minutes to spare and you can get into an issue or a book or whatever. And it's just like, that was living in my apartment for, how long, and like, I could have gone on this adventure. I could have really used this when this happened, and that's kind of the beauty of it. They're all just, gosh, we don't clean enough in this house, but we were cleaning the other day, and every time I opened a box, like, more books would come out, and like, hopefully we'll read more than not read, but
no, it's very cool. And I think there was a movie someone I had talked to hadn't seen, and it was, I think it was a horror movie.
Yeah,
because I'm a big horror fan, and I told that person, I'm like, I envy you that you have yet to see this.
Oh, right.
You're gonna love it. And
what movie was it? Because I think I shied away from horror for a long time because I was scared, and now I'm starting to really, again, just like in comics, just kind of studying the tapes again, and seeing what came before. But well, do you remember what movie it was you guys were kind of picking apart?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Older? Like one of the classics or something?
No, it was one of the newer, like one of the lesser known, like, horror classics. Usually with me, there's like 8 horror movies I always go back to.
Nice.
And it's like, have you seen The Descent? Have you seen Hereditary? Have you seen the original Halloween? Have you seen Cycle says Leprechaun 2? I don't think I've ever watched that.
I don't think so either. I just watched Chucky like a year or two ago, and I was such a dick when it started. It was my girlfriend's in the chat, Jamie, and she's a huge horror nut, and we put it on, and God, like right at the opening scene, I was like, oh, I can't wait till I see why they made 7 more of these. just a little prick about it, but and then you watch it, and then you realize your foot's been in your mouth. You know what I mean? You're like, wow, okay, I get it now. So, but I live for those moments where you realize that your head's been a little far up your ass. So it's been great.
You like to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
If it means you get to enjoy something like that.
Absolutely.
And I have, my phone's blowing up with some pals who, historically on the big 2 side of things, I'm a Marvel guy.
Yeah.
I love all comics, and I don't, if anything, I'm more just whatever's on the shelf that I've been recommended is probably what I'm getting, regardless of the publisher. But we're in a constant argument about the DC movies, the Marvel movies. And, there's a lot of the DC ones that were kind of I didn't enjoy for various reasons.
Sure.
And I try to tell my pals, and they might even be listening, that I want them to succeed. I want them to make killer movies. Don't get me wrong.
I think that's why you guys are willing to expel the energy to even argue about it, right? Because would we argue if we didn't think it could be done better, right? Like, yeah, it's I get fired up on that too. You know what I mean? But you know, but then again, now in like comics is compared to film, it's like a much smaller production, right?
Yeah.
And even in my first year of comics, I'm learning that, man, all the, like, whether I've read them or not, every book I have was someone's miracle that it even happened, you know, and I can't even imagine having, you know, exponentially like, you know, more than a comics team, you know what I mean? When you have 50 to 100 to 200 people working on one thing that's supposed to come out, like it's yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth, but you know, there's some times where you can't help but see something come out and you're like, damn, like you had the chance of a lifetime, right? And how did it fall so short? You know, like I even think me saying that is like, now that I have like a bit more empathy for how production happens, you know, it's
right.
But you know, you can't, as a fan, it's you know, I guess in our heads, as in a fan's head, it's kind of like, oh, it's so easy, man. You just had to do this, you know what I mean? And I guess, you know, when you put, I guess when you're on the ground floor of doing that stuff, maybe it's not so easy. But yeah, I agree with you.
Well, and just on that topic, is there well, we'll talk about comics too. Is there any movies, any film right now that you're really into? Just off the top of your head, line of films, anything?
You know, not film. I think when we were talking about horror, I loved Hereditary, even though it scared the shit out of me.
Myself as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's even on the second watch throughs, you know, that's just a very disturbing film. But I think that's what I love about it. But I think one of the first things that popped in my head was The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a very, like, storytelling wise, like pound for pound, like I thought that was just so smooth and so good, you know?
Yeah.
But the question was like, kind of notable movies that I loved recently.
Well, anything, you know, I think we always venture into recommendation territory on here. And I think, your mind, your creative mind, you guys have a lot, everyone's got a different approach, but it's just your approach would be quite a bit different from even just picking a movie on Netflix or picking a film to watch any time. But no, I'm just curious.
I'm a big, I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but Denis Villeneuve, Blade Runner and Dune, or we haven't seen Dune yet, but Arrival, man, I remember seeing Arrival right when, like, it was the week that Trump got elected. And I think my heart was crying when I came out of that movie, because I was like, guys, it's so clear. We just have to talk to each other, you know, like, and I just, you know, like, I think that's, I mean, that really is just the best part of the storytelling, right? When you're so immersed that a simple message such as that is so much louder than if somebody were to yell it to your face, you know? But yeah, the combination between Denis and Roger Deakins is insane to me. I think Deakins is an absolute master for cinematography and lighting. So I'm a big fan of that duo. Gosh, other movies. I've been watching such like small bites things, you know. Been watching John Wilson on HBO, How to with John Wilson.
Yeah.
And that's just funny as hell. But as far as films, I'm trying to think what else recently that really hit me. Gosh.
Well, I put you on the spot there.
No, yeah, I feel like I always have a way of blanking on that. I'm sure it'll come up though.
Well, just speaking of like your approach, and just jumping back to Giga just for 1 second, you know, you talk about manga and anime and you know, love for certain films. Are you channeling, you know, some inspiration from manga, comics you've read, artists you like, obviously inspired by Mobius, as we talked about earlier. Not obviously, but you talked about it, and you do see some Mobius in your work for sure.
Sure.
But are you channeling something on more of like a cinematic level, or are you thinking back to manga you read it as a kid, or what are you kind of channeling when you're approaching your work, or is it something else entirely?
I think it comes from all over, really. I think one of the biggest things, going back to transition from editorial stuff to comics, I think clarity has been such an emphasis, so comic creators like Toth and Tonchi Zoniak, like really clear storytelling, like that has hit very hard for me. As far as film, I think it was, I was listening to a podcast a while back, maybe a couple years back, of they were interviewing Christopher McQuarrie, and or I think that was his name, the director of like Mission Impossible, like 2 through 4 or something. And there was something he had said where it was like the question was like, what would, like, for Tom Cruise to do his own stunts, like what was the process like of going up to Tom and asking him to do a stunt? And he explained it as like, like if he had an idea of like, all right, Tom Cruise, we need to put a snake in your pants in this scene. And the first thing Tom would say would be like, all right, that sounds awesome. How are we going to film it?
Yeah.
And second, he would always follow it up with like, is my face going to be in it? And so, it's totally funny on the surface. And then they start to delve into it a little more of like, I think Tom's excuse was like, I think there's a scene in Mission Impossible 2 where it's like a motorcycle chase and everybody has helmets on except for Tom Cruise. And his explanation of that, of like, why not have a stunt double on something like that, was like, is the connection to the audience and how much we connect to a face. And I think it was kind of like a whirlwind, I was noticing it through that interview. And then I think at that time I was reading Extremity by Daniel Warren Johnson, and just, understanding how much we like these glorified face shots are, like so much of how we connect to a character and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that is a big thing I'm trying to do more in comics, where I didn't really emphasize that on my older work, right? That was outside of comics, because, it was kind of, there wasn't, I wouldn't do really full frontal face shots. A lot of my stuff would be kind of isolated and in a strange land or something, with just somebody walking through it or something, and like 40 Days in the Desert kind of stuff. But I think what I'm starting to understand more as I like watch film or I read comics is when to cut back to that face shot.
Yeah.
And even, I think at the same time, me and my girlfriend had just watched Terminator 2 again, Judgment Day, and that last scene when, he's going into the lava, like how often they cut back to the face.
Yeah.
They're cutting back, like almost comical, but it works.
Yeah.
It really works. And I feel like that's something I'm really trying to, like, as I'm laying out pages, I'm like, all right, like I'm looking for areas where, like, have I shown that facial shot yet? Like, have I shown that, like, emotional, where the eyes are fully rendered? Like, have I brought us back to character yet?
Yeah.
Because I think home court advantage for me in comics so far is like landscapes and environments.
Yeah.
And where I kind of need to learn a lot more is these kind of portraiture kind of shots of showing the emotion and really carrying through what the words are saying, that's definitely a key thing that I've been trying to pull from watching film and reading other comics and into Giga.
No, that's very cool, because like you said, you could just rely on, your home court advantage, but it's awesome to hear what you're striving for. And I think maybe looking back on some Giga stuff, you can see when you're doing that, and it's not like by the numbers thing, but it very much is connecting you to the characters, because most giant mech books I would have read, I would just presume, like we said before, I don't. It's almost like with Godzilla movies. I love Godzilla movies. They're still trying to make them, bring them back to characters. How do you bring a character that matters to you into a story when it's Godzilla fighting King Kong?
Right.
How do you do that? And I think, then you kind of just touched on it in a lot of ways. So
yeah, and I think we were talking about it earlier a bit of like I don't remember what prompted it, but I think what I was going on about was like learning where where what I'm currently doing is strongest in comics, and what I'm learning from how Alex will cater his writing to what I do. And one thing I keep hearing over and over about my work, or when people speak of it, is quiet moments. And so with that combined with Alex's writing and us doing a big mech book, I'm understanding that like the type of story where there are so many quiet moments, but the backdrop is the spectacle.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I need to lean into more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That level of insight is very interesting. And I think level of insight and level of honesty, how you're approaching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's up, Max? That's awesome.
Leon agrees.
Yeah, that cover was kind of scary to do, because even when you get like gosh, that was like my first cover I had done.
Yeah.
And like, I can't tell you how insecure I was of how small our character is on this page. And I'm just like, man, they're gonna look at you and they're gonna be like, what were you thinking? You know what I mean? Like, she's literally, I can't even call her like 25% of the imagery. You know what I mean? But it, once that all came together with Tim Daniel at Vault, and then Roche with the colors, it's exactly what we needed to be. And I'm frankly, like a lot of Giga, you know what I mean? Since I'm so new to everything, I don't have much points of references. Like it's like I'll do something, and then I'll like, months or weeks later, I'll hear the response to it. I'm like, oh shit, that worked. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that kind of game of like seeing what is working and what isn't, and then especially relating that to time, right? Because it is a production,
right?
And you are a role in the assembly line. So just learning where to spend more time and where to not spend too much time, finding that delicate balance.
For sure. Curious about the cover. Had you already drawn issue 1 when you tackled the cover?
I think I had laid out issue 1, but okay. I think I was maybe not even halfway through yet before we made it. So a lot of it, it's, gosh, I mean, like, another overwhelming thing of going into comics is how much design you have to do, and how, like, from the characters and how they look and how they move and how they look at different angles. Like, I unfortunately didn't really do any churn sheets, and that's going to change on my next projects for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although my next project is fairly easier because we introduced so many new characters throughout Giga, and my next comic is really just going to be centered around one character. But for something like this, like I, kind of trying to keep up with myself a bit, where I'm trying to design. I'm finding that I'm designing most things on the page, you know what I mean? So I think I designed a little bit of Laurel here and then a little bit on the page, and kind of was like cross-referencing and stuff like that. But it was I think I saw Mitch Gerard say it once. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but how he said that he felt that every great cover he's ever made felt like a leap of faith, and he didn't know where he was going to land. And that's kind of been one of the lines that I kind of let resonate in my head when I'm doing something like a cover, and the weight of a cover.
Oh, cool. No, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Jared's is he does some pretty crazy cover work.
Yeah, such a mind of a designer, that guy. Yeah, it's incredible stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that from a few people say that exact thing almost.
Right.
Kind of a mind of the designer coming at it. Yeah, and you can tell. Yeah, he's the last 6-7 years that guy's
right. Yeah, for good reason. I mean, he's speaking to a very large audience in the industry. Yeah. Which is great, and you can I personally learned so much from reading his stuff. I mean, yeah, it's great. I think I had read something like, forgot what book it was. I'm pretty sure I have like the first trade on my shelf, but it was like a creator-owned book that I read from him years ago when I was like 22 to 24, and I was starting to really buy comics, and then coming back and starting to pick up comics again, and in Mr. Miracle and reading through Mr. Miracle, and it's just, God, like the way that team was just well-oiled machine, full understanding between each other, so I love learning from Mitch. He's really good.
Yeah, he is. And what some people forget, well, I don't know if you forget, but he had that pretty good Punisher run at one point as well.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah. Gosh. See, it's so funny, man, because I'm like, God, he would be so good at Punisher, and now I get to go look at a whole run that he did. It's exciting.
Yeah,
who wrote that one?
I'll look it up.
Sorry.
I should know this because, again, I actually had a page from it.
Oh, really?
It was a really great page. The Punisher went to L.A.
Mitch is mostly Mitch kind of changes now, because I think even Strange Adventures, doesn't he do like, I think he does the backgrounds traditionally and then the characters digitally. I forget. I feel like or it might be vice versa.
Well, and a friend of mine, I don't think he's here, good friend who's been on the live stream before. Yeah. He has one of those covers, one of the covers, not the pages, but the cover was mostly done traditionally, and then there was definitely some touch-ups and some fixes digitally. But I'm not sure what he's doing with the pages, and I guess he's only doing half of those. Is it Evan Shainer's doing the other half?
Yeah. Or Doc Shainer, or is his real name Evan? Or
I think it's Evan Doc.
Oh, cool.
I think I might have just made that up. But is there anyone else just off the top of your head, current creators that you like, newer modern guys that you really dig right now?
Tyrell Cannon. He's doing Beef Bros, and he's done a bunch of indie stuff. That guy, I feel like he's just visceral. I've been really loving Tonchi's work, between his personal work as well as Skull Digger.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. For sure.
I take deep breaths when I flip through his books. You know what I mean? he did. I don't know if you probably have read it, but he did something called I think it was called Between Stories or something like that, where it was just about a woman like waking up at a space station or like in a spaceship, and it's on his site. It's like a free comic he did, and I just I just felt like that was just one of the most amazing pieces of art ever made.
Oh, cool. I have not read that. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. But he's definitely, Tonchi's a favorite. Jerome Pena's a favorite. I love Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham was kind of at the same time when I found Mobius, to see a graffiti injected Mobius was sad, with also very classic cartooning. And Brandon became actually one of like the first guys I had, one of the first pros I had ever talked to, and he was, I don't know if he'll hear this ever, but I feel like he is pretty responsible for me kind of getting in, you know what I mean, to the comics industry. He had introduced me to Ken Gehring, which is another person I also love. He did Praxis, as well as Planetoid over at Image, and Gogor. But Ken Gehring actually let me, my first thing I ever did in comics was like 2015 or 2016. I got to do like a little 3-page backstory in an issue of Praxis. And that only happened because of meeting Brandon and then him introducing me to Ken Gehring at the time.
Cool.
Up at Image Expo, I think it was 2015 or 2014.
Nice.
But yeah, those guys are fantastic. And then, of course, older guys are huge for me. Otomo, of course,
Yeah.
Otomo Matsumoto for Tech on Concrete. The new guys, Anand, I can't say his name, Anand RK, but from Blue and Green. Yeah. And they just announced Radio Apocalypse, which is going to be fantastic. And Rafferty's Wall as well. I really love. I love, gosh, what's her name? I love her stuff. I just got to, it's Tiffany. Oh, no, it's not Tiffany. Tilly Walden. I don't think I draw anything like Tilly Walden, but her work as a storyteller is just, I want to do books like that. Same with who's this? This is Tamaki, who did Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. I don't know if you read that. I think that came out last year. No, kind of those super like indie books that are like on first, second kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Really love that stuff. And yeah, gosh, there's a bunch, really, right? There's too many to list, probably. But yeah, I think as far as like who do I go to like really learn about the medium, and right now it's probably Tonchi.
Okay.
Oh, probably between Tonchi, Daniel Warren Johnson, and Jerome Pena. Like those three guys, I just, gosh, I feel like I learn something every time I read their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, there's a real rise in really creative minds that are doing beautiful work right now, and I think like I said, I think we're lucky. And just a quick plug with Brandon. Anyone listening, books out tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, Rain Like Hammers tomorrow. Yeah. Very excited. I message
him once a week to send me all the pages. So
that's awesome. So
we'll have those to offer up here soon, guys. I'm really excited. Brandon's work is, like you said, it's pretty fantastic, and he's so unique.
He's so unapologetically himself, and I think that's the key to good art. You know what I mean? Good anything, really. It's he is him, and nobody else can be him. You know what I mean? And I am so in love with that. Yeah. But I can't wait for Rain Like Hammers, man. I'm very, very excited to flip through that.
Myself as well. I think that one's going to be awesome. Anything we've kind of snippets, everything he does has been good. Also tomorrow, double dose just for you guys. Matt Lesniewski and Matt Kint's Crimson Flower is out tomorrow.
Oh man,
issue 1, and it's really good. It's really good. And actually, we're gonna have Matt on the live show tomorrow night.
Awesome, awesome.
The ever elusive Matt Lesniewski. We finally convinced him to hop on.
How cool!
Matt's amazing. But
that's
two good books out tomorrow. For sure.
I can't. Yeah. Oh man, I can't wait for those two. Tomorrow's a really good new comic book day. Then.
Yeah, it is. I was gonna head in there, I think yesterday, and I thought I'll wait till Wednesday. It's gonna be a big one. And I have, I do have the pages for Crimson Flower. But there's an announcement coming on that soon here too. But Matt hand lettered all those pages, so
right.
Just you got the entire story.
Is that the first time Matt is doing that? No, right? Like that. Has he done this before?
He's done it before.
Cool.
And I'll ask him tomorrow. But this may be his first published collaboration, because everything's usually him.
Just
stories. So.
And to do it with such a juggernaut like Matt Kindt, oh my God. Matt Kindt's one of those guys that like pioneers of not pioneers, but just pioneers for my little world of like the creators, like one of the first during that kind of like discovery Mobius and seeing what other comics was there, Mind Management was like, god damn. Like that book was just, I was jaw on the floor even now, like 10 years later. Like it was just mind opening of what comics can do. It was so rad. So to see him work with Matt, the Matt Squared is going to be so special.
Yeah, I'm excited for that drop, for sure.
That's awesome.
And do we know? Do you have a date for Giga #3 release yet?
Not currently, but I'm going to refrain from saying anything yet. But we should be out by mid-February for Giga 3.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I think, we started kind of talking about other artists, other things. We kind of got off the topic of you, which is Giga. anyone listening, Giga is awesome. Get caught up. Go buy the floppies. There's been a few prints. Grab it all. It's awesome.
Thank you.
It makes me happy just to read it. The art, the story. It's very captivating, and not necessarily for the reasons you think in a Giant Mech book. So, one of the coolest things on shelves right now for sure.
Thanks.
But we're kind of at that hour mark, John. We've kind of been winding down with right around an hour, but we've kind of listened to your recommendations. Is there one book right now you'd recommend to anyone out there? Any comic from anyone? That's something new, something old. Doesn't have to. Yeah. I love putting you on the spot, but
yeah. I'm gonna try not to pick anything that's in front of me because I have like a stack of books here. Now I'm at that threshold of I'm gonna just pull something out of my butt. But Skulldigger is fantastic. Skulldigger with Tonchi is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And pretty much everything else. So. I think I just kind of whittle into a little like dry flower when I'm put on the spot. Oh, that's so funny.
That's great. It's interested. Always, everyone's got such a different perspective on the books out right now and the artists and the creators. It's really cool to hear because I've pulled a few recommendations out of your conversation here. So I think awesome. It's been great. But I think that's probably where we'll end it for now. And amazing. If you guys are all really nice to John, we'll convince him to come back on. We've still got some Giga pages from issue 2 available, so don't hesitate. And there will be more on the way, plus some specialty images that are up there as well. So head on over to the site if you want something from John. And we haven't nailed down commissions or anything yet, but we will be doing that eventually.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna try and steal a spot on that list, but I always give everyone else a shot before I jump in. So don't worry, you guys. I don't cheat the system. But I'm really excited. I'm excited to see Giga. I'm excited for the rest of the projects. I'm excited for these commission lists, and I think it's going to be a huge year for you, sir. So I'm really excited to see more.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, as well, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. And we'll be back on tomorrow night with Mr. Matt Lesniewski. But like I mentioned before, we're going to start doing, probably 2 of these a week. They're a lot of fun. So, be prepared for more of my crooked mustache. Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night. Thanks, John. And we'll chat with everyone soon.
Thank you.